Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got a big show lined up for you. Let's get right on into it. All right. Is North Carolina the next to sue the ACC? And realignment appears to be inevitable. I don't see any way this is stopped. You've got now two lawsuits already, Florida State and Clemson, and now North Carolina is rattling their saber, and they're ready to do something as well.
You're out of order! You're out of order! The whole trial is out of order! They're out of order!
This is a story in Inside Carolina. It says UNC BOT, which is Board of Trustees chair, calls for ACC transparency. I don't think he's real thrilled with their athletic director. This is by Greg Barnes. It says Clemson is seeking a declaration of their rights related to the scope of the grant of rights. They call it invalid and unenforceable of the ACC's $140 million exit fee and the non-existence of fiduciary duties. And that's where they're claiming the conference is not taking care of its members. They're not doing what's best for them. It says the crux of that lawsuit seems to revolve around the matter of disclosure and clarity. The ACC has operated in a clandestine manner with regard to its grant of rights and the ESPN agreements. And as you know, you have to go to a special place to look at those grant of rights. You can't make a copy. You can't take it out of the room. It's a very secure document, to say the least. And Clemson's lawsuit states the ACC has cast a harmful cloud of doubt on Clemson's ability to engage in meaningful discussions with other conferences and media providers. And yeah, the way they got it set up, Clemson can't even find out what is available to them out there. And it's really an unfortunate situation. You've got teams in the ACC that are falling far behind the Big Ten and the SEC. They've got new contracts with Fox Sports and ESPN.
Thank you, sir. There you go. There you go. There you go.
The ACC is stuck in a contract through 2036. And we're going to talk about that because there is a way out of that that's kind of in reverse. But that's a really long time to be already 25, 30 million a year behind. And that's going to go on for, what, 12 years now? They'll be even further behind. They'll be 40, 50 million dollars behind by the time that contract ended. So they can see the forest for the trees. There's no way they're going to be able to compete at a top 10 level, those teams, if they're that far behind. Because what they're going to have to do is hit up all their boosters for extra money just to keep up with the money they're spending on facilities, the stadiums, all that kind of stuff, and then there won't be any money for NIL. So, the handwriting's on the wall. The ACC responded with their own lawsuit trying to bar Clemson from challenging the validity of grant of rights like they did with Florida State. And the reason we're bringing up North Carolina is they had actually joined Florida State and Clemson in voting against conference expansion. The ACC added 3 teams. The reason they did that is in case some teams left, they wouldn't fall below a threshold to where they would actually disband. So it was an insurance policy by the ACC. And those 3 teams were Stanford, California, and SMU. And the UNC Board of Trustee, John Pryor, had told Inside Carolina, he said, what Clemson's doing is 100% proof positive that a significant portion of the membership is unhappy. And he said, I don't see how it's anyone's interest for the ACC leadership to try and browbeat its member schools from getting access to information. And what they're really ticked off about, that they're not representing the best interests of all members, but instead it's really representing the bottom tier of the membership at the expense of the top tier, which is why Clemson and Florida State are doing what they're doing. He said, I think it's obvious. And obviously North Carolina considers themselves in the top tier as well between basketball and football, which has actually been really good. And now everybody's looking at North Carolina because you've already had the 2 prominent schools sue, and UNC being part of those 3, it's kind of expected that they'll do the same thing. Pryor said it's too soon to tell, but it certainly creates added pressure on the conference to address the concerns of its member schools. That means you better do something or we're going to sue you as well. Now we're going to get into something kind of interesting. It says in January, Pryor told Inside Carolina that it was incumbent upon UNC's leadership to do what is in the university's best interest when it came to dramatic changes taking place across the landscape, that those leaders had an obligation to assess the financial realities of growing revenue gaps between conferences and make the best decision for UNC based on that data. Here's the issue. The athletic director, Bubba Cunningham, was more cautious, and he wants to be a great partner in supporting the ACC while the school takes a measured approach and the current unknowns that exist in the NCAA framework. And he actually said that Florida State should have to pay more than $500 million to get out, maybe $600, $700 million.
That's like saying, I want a bajillion dollars.
And then in 2036, after they paid all that, they can get their grant of rights back. So obviously, Bubba is not on the same page with Florida State, Clemson, and certainly not his own board of trustee. It says there was a clear difference in opinion in the interviews and how to guide UNC through this pivotal moment. Yeah, these guys are not on the same page, the athletic director and the board of trustees. Pryor even said it's a potential conflict, and it's something that is disturbing based on some of the comments he's made recently, which seem to support the ACC at the expense of Carolina.
You have failed me for the last time.
That is not good. It says we all have to fight the comfort of complacency, and I think now is the time to be very open to pursuing all options, including those beyond remaining in the ACC. I'm telling you, this is getting spicy at North Carolina. You've got the board of trustees, you've got the athletic director, and Bubba is supportive of ACC. And the North Carolina folks are like, hey, you work for us. You don't work for the ACC.
Hello?
I can see them getting upset. It says the board of trustees will hold their regular meeting this month, next Wednesday and Thursday at Chapel Hill, and I bet that'll be a spicy, spicy meeting. I had a feeling that athletic director was kind of going out on a limb there a little bit. I tell you, you got to be careful, because never forget about who you actually work for. And he may have to do a 180 on the position that he's taken, which is what I would do if I was him. The athletic director needs to turn it around and say, okay, Houston, we got a problem.
This is Houston. Say again, please.
Houston, we have a problem.
Exactly. So as I've told you, these next few months are going to be very eventful. Between the lawsuits that you've already got 2 lawsuits, you're probably going to have a third from North Carolina. And then all they need one judge to side with them. It can be the judge in Florida. It can be the judge in South Carolina. It could be a judge in North Carolina. They just need one. And then you've got a precedent set, and they need an exit strategy. At some point, here's what's going to happen. These big dog schools are going to exit. There's no way they're going to stay in the ACC given its current makeup. And you'll probably have a bunch of schools added to the ACC like they've already done, and it'll become kind of like the Big 12. And I think ESPN is not going to sign that extension in February that would go through 2036 if these other schools leave. So between now and February is probably when all this is going to happen. It could happen in a couple of months. It could happen in 6 months. But that's that part I was talking about earlier in the video, is that ESPN can blow this whole thing up. Because what they're not going to want to do is pay the same amount of money they're paying now and have 5, 6, 7 schools out, especially the big dogs like FSU, Clemson, and North Carolina. And there's also talk of Miami, NC State, Virginia, Virginia Tech, and so on and so forth wanting out. The Magnificent Seven, which you've heard of. And even Notre Dame, who isn't a part of the ACC, but kind of is. A lot of their teams participate with the ACC, and they do play 5 games a year with them. So this is getting incredibly interesting, and especially with the North Carolina folks like this with themselves and soon to be with the ACC. It's just not going to play out. There's no way you can have this much animosity, lawsuits, ACC between their top schools. This is a bad marriage, and it's going to end even worse if they don't separate.
I hate goodbyes.
And one of the things that I'm so interested in is because I normally follow the SEC because my team, the Vols, I'm super interested in what teams are going to come in the SEC because I want Clemson and Florida State. I would love to have North Carolina and Virginia, but I don't know that we'll get them because the Big Ten is going to have a big say in this, and they're going to want North Carolina, Virginia, Florida State. Clemson will probably get for sure because they're not a member of the AAU, but North Carolina, I believe, is. Virginia, I believe, is. And Florida State is trying to be so. So that's why I'm so interested in this, because it's going to directly affect the SEC and the Big Ten in a major way. Look, it's going to be the Big Two. We just might as well know that. And then you're going to have your second-level college teams that'll be in the Big 12 and the ACC. I think the ACC might survive as a smaller conference. And then you'll have your group of 5. And that's how it's going to play out. So these big dog teams in the ACC, they're playing musical chairs, and they don't want to be left with the music stopping and no seats in the 2 big conferences. If you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Let's me know continue to cover all this college news. If you've not subscribed, hit this button right here on your right. It'll help you get my videos and help you keep up with all this stuff. And right over here is a video YouTube thinks you'll enjoy based on your viewing history. And we'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay.